Okay, my name is Tracey. I live in Verona, Italy. My origins are from Kiwi land. New Zealand. Do you know New Zealand? Yeah. Have you been there? Yeah. Oh, she's learning. Never say no to a teacher. We say not yet. Okay, I'm a very positive person, as you can tell. Sorry, right. If I scratch, will you please tell me stop? Okay, I have psoriasis. It's my new friend. And I'm still learning what to do. Okay, so please forgive me if I start scratching, but tell me to stop. Please, please, please. Thank you. All right, what we're going to do is 21st century skills. Yeah. Okay, so there must be 21 ways to teach with readers. Now, how many of you use readers? Okay, now we're going to find out if you use readers the way I do. Now, based on the 21st century skills, which of course are extremely important. See? The whistling. Okay? Yeah, you know this? Yeah, of course you do. Okay? In terms of teaching? Yeah? Now you're all wishing I had made them bigger. Sorry. So let's go. Right, so number one way to use a reader, use the title to guess the story. Sophie's Dream, what's it about?
It's about a dream that Sophie has.
Well done. Well done. Any more details? What do you think?
The world of imagination.
I love you. Yes, completely wrong, but well done. Any other ideas?
Takes place at night.
Well done, it takes place at night. Plate, that's a good one, plate. Well done, critical thinking, good girl. Anything else? It could be about an elephant. Okay. How old is Sophie? How old is Sophie?
7.
She could be 7. Is she 27?
Then she has
Well done. Well done. She would have nightmares if she's 27. I'd like to know what happens between the age of 7 and 27 when you go from happy to another day at work. You can be very exciting and use it with the CD. You can download the listening and use it. Okay? These are not new ideas. We know these. We're all saying, and now we've got 19 to go. CDs. Aren't they wonderful? They are very good for scaring away birds. Yeah? They are very good for
making decorations for the disco.
Exactly! That's what I like about you. Going outside the box. Well done. You can't do that with the old cassettes. Or how many of you watched the Democratic debate last week? I didn't. I watched the highlights, where one of the candidates suggested that people stay home and listen to their record players. Did you hear about that? I thought, blimey, at least I'm talking about this millennium, not last millennium. Blimey. The teacher reads the book to the class. Do you read to your students?
Yeah.
Okay. What I thought was kind of ironic, can you see the picture that I put here?
Yeah.
When I Googled pictures of, or images of teachers reading to students, all the pictures came up of the teacher with pint-sized children, which I thought is interesting. My sister works in a secondary school. She teaches girls from 13 to 18, and she reads to her students. And she teaches the low literacy class, so the girls don't, she teaches in a girls' school, by the way, because I'm saying girls, girls, girls. She reads to them, and the girls really like it. They enjoy being read to. So I thought it's something that we could do, should do, not yet. I don't expect you to put your children in front of you. I'm trying to imagine my 16-year-olds all coming and sitting in front of me while I read the book. I'm thinking, maybe not. I could try it.
Miss, what are you doing?
We could jumble the paragraphs, simply take a page from one of the books, cut the paragraphs, ask the students to put them in order. This is good for critical thinking, this is good for reading skills, this is really good for understanding what it or he or she refers to. Because a lot of students have problems with that. How many of your students write essays with "on the other hand"? And I love it. And you're saying to them, where's the first hand? Do yours do that as well? Mine actually the other day wrote "additionally," and then she went completely off on another story. And I thought, do you know what additionally means? Like add. Doesn't mean add to another point, it means continuation. Oh, I found it and I thought it was a good word. Yours like mine? Do you teach in primary? Secondary? Tertiary? Have no idea why you're here?
I thought it was me.
All right. Number 5. Using a picture to talk about what is in the story. So, let me see if this works. What's happening in this picture, children? Not an answer. They're having a tea party, yes. And it's not 5 o'clock. Exactly. Do you do that here in Poland? That you're convinced that at 5 o'clock the entire Great Britain stops for tea at 5? Living in Italy, I couldn't understand it. It took me absolutely ages. People would say, oh, you would be wanting a cup of tea now. And it took me ages until somebody said, no, in Britain you stop and have tea at 5. Can you imagine the entire country stopping? Like, shit, it's 5! Stop, find a cup of tea! But they're convinced that that's what they do, and it's just, seriously, it's the only time of the day where you don't have a cup of tea. You have a cup of tea any time of the day. If you've ever been to Britain, you know the first thing they say is, I'll put the kettle on, you have a cup of tea, except that, because you're already onto the, are we allowed to use certain words here? Yes. Okay, like, well, alcohol? Can I say that without being arrested or something? No? Not yet. Yeah, exactly. I'm waiting for that moment. No, with my teenagers, my primary, of course, it's oblivious. For them, it's perfectly normal to have someone drinking alcohol at 8 o'clock in the morning. So for them, you know, what is it? But you can laugh. I visited one school ages ago in the headmaster's office. He's got all these teeny tiny little bottles of alcohol around. And I remember thinking, do I say something? Do I not? Because how can you know how your eyes betray you if you're doing this. And he said, oh, they're not from me, they're from the children. Because in Veneto, which is where I live, after lunch, because lunch is the biggest meal of the day, after lunch you have a little gratin, so a little wrapper, because it helps settle the dinner. You're talking about 6-year-olds to 10-year-olds. I'm trying to think of the parents who literally said, take this after lunch. And the teachers have had to confiscate them. I thought, wasn't that amazing? Sorry, what was I saying? Serious stuff? Oh yes. My gin and tonic without gin, without tonic. Okay. No, my teenagers, we call it special tea. Because we can't say beer at school. Well, we can, but if you're under 18, you're not allowed to drink in Italy, unless, yes, there isn't, against the law. So my boys, of course, you know, they have a party. I said, what was the party? Oh, great party. What did you do? Oh, we drank special tea. My kids are lovely. So, are they have drinking special tea here? No, it's normal tea. Okay, and what do you think the little girl is saying?
Who's she?
She's the one who's kind of over here. So what is she saying?
The door is open.
The door is open, or?
Where's the other at the door?
Where's the alcohol? Yeah, she's probably from my area of town. What are these two creatures saying? You can say anything and I'll go yes. It's perfectly all right. He's probably saying something like, where's the milk? He's probably saying something like, what is that in my cup? Because it looks like a frog leg or something coming out. And the bird? Where is the bird? Where is the bird? God, you guys are great visuals. Look at you. The bird will be the one that's got wings and a beak. Do they have birds different here in Poland?
Not yet.
Not yet. But I'm learning a lot, thank you. In 10 minutes I have learned a lot about Poland. Okay. So what is the bird saying? Lovely day. I was thinking, does he look like your students when you ask a question? They do that, yeah? I love the way you ask a question. Every single student always goes. Not many look down. Have you noticed that? I love the way they do it. Anything to look at the teacher's eyes. Reading upside down. Joking aside, reading upside down is one of the best things you can do. Does anyone know why? I'm not on drugs, it's actually real. It's done by George Bush. It's actually really good for the brain. Training your brain. The rule is something like half an hour a day. Teachers generally are very good at reading upside down. Because as a teacher, you're walking around, you're looking at students' work upside down, so your brain's being tested all the time, makes us more intelligent than other people. It's what science says, it's not what Tracey says. So, turning the book upside down is good for you. Alternatives are using the opposite hand to brush your teeth. If you normally use your right, use your left. I suggest you do it alone. Any toothbrush will end up a nostril or an ear. So, don't do it. But it's actually really good for the brain. And a simple activity. Thank you, George. So what happens next? Tracey, press a button. What happens next? Don't read the words, look at the picture. What happens next?
The bear is going to drop something onto the animal's head.
Nice, nice, okay.
They're all going to start dancing.
Yeah.
As one does. Okay, no, absolutely, why not? Yeah, I'd like to understand this. Excuse me. You have a child, you have some wolves, you have a bear in the stance, you have a tiger who... Yeah. Tigers don't normally say, excuse me, may I come in? They have a habit of just coming in. So, there are possibilities. The bear is going to start dancing and leave them because he looks like a teacher. The tiger is going to start having lunch, breakfast or dinner. We're not quite sure what time of day it is, but something could happen. Here, who is who and what happens to them? We've got some lovely people. They're very lovely. Thank you for looking so positive about that. What do you think happens to these people? They all die at the end due to a plague. I'm watching the Hot Zone at the moment, that's why. Zombies get them. No? I'm teaching teenagers, believe me, either they all turn into vampires, because quite frankly, he's not bad, I'm pretty close to a vampire, he's got that look, right? So theoretically, he could actually avenge and take everyone's lives, so it's a very short story. We've obviously got the two intelligent people here. I like this. In all the ELI books, you'll notice that all the bullies have all got the stance. Okay, you'll notice that. So what happens to them? Vampires get them. Zombies get them.
Aliens go.
Aliens get them. It's all very positive here. Anything else? They all become friends and have a cup of tea.
Specialty.
Specialty, yes, probably more likely, yes. Any other suggestions?
Go on a special mission together.
Oh. Wow. Obviously brave. Where do they go?
I don't know.
You made up the story!
Somewhere difficult.
To save the world.
Find the treasure.
Whatever the kids say is absolutely wonderful. The thing is, looking at the characters, starting a story, what happens to them. If you're right, great. If you're wrong, great. I don't care. Okay? Actually, vampires do get them. While they're having an adventure to... What happens in the story?
Before I start my story, I need to give you some important information. You can kill fairies very easily, but you don't need a gun. It's easy. Every time someone says, "I don't believe in fairies," somewhere a fairy dies. Every time. Somewhere. There aren't many fairies now, and that is why. You can kill them very easily. Nobody knows where the fairies go when they die. But they don't stay here, where we are. Now I can start my story. It starts like all good stories. Once upon a time, a long time ago, in London, there was a happy family in a happy house. Happy parents, happy children, and a happy dog. All good stories start with a mistake, and this story isn't different. What was the mistake in this story? The window was open. Never leave your windows open at night. Anything can get in. All children understand this, but Mrs. Darling wasn't a child. That night, she left the window open, and they came in. The big one and the little one.
What happens? They took Mrs. Darling. We're back onto the aliens.
Sounds like Peter Pan for adults.
Well, no, it's. I love the voice. I did this with my own children, the smaller ones. But you hear the part where "and they came in," the big one and the small one. Now you're adults. You know the story, yeah? Not yet. Peter Pan. Okay. Now, we know that the big one is Peter Pan, and the small one is Tinkerbell, which is why he starts with the fairies, okay? Now, when I read the story to my students, I stopped there, and I said, okay, what happens? And of course, they did not realise it was Peter Pan, and they continued to make up these wonderful stories. These are 9-year-olds. And that was fantastic. And one of my little kids sitting over here, I'm sorry I'm going to indicate you, he said, the little one is a mosquito. And I said, okay, fair enough, you know, everything's fair. So we did the rest of the story. And at the very end, remember the very end of Peter Pan, okay, everything ends up very happy. And the little boy looked at me and the mosquito? Okay. So he was clearly listening to me for the entire story because it never mentions a mosquito. But he must have been so attentive with, any minute now she's going to mention the mosquito. And I mean, it took 2 weeks to do the story. So this kid was so attentive, and I swear to him, what do you do when a kid is just like oblivious to everything else? And the mosquito? Lovely. So here is a wonderful way to start. Another one. Do you know the story? Yes, you do. Of course you do. This is very organised. Do you know this story, The Jungle Book?
Yes.
Because I did this again with a group of students, and it says, this is the story of The Jungle Book. It starts when two people die, a man and a woman. Their names are not important. Their lives are not important. Only this is important. They died. Of course, everyone dies, sooner or later. It is natural. It is the first law of the jungle. But the woman and the man died in a terrible way. They went into the jungle, but they didn't know the laws of the jungle. So Shere Khan killed them. Happy, huh? My kids were absolutely thrilled at the beginning of this story. We continued the story and we collected the laws of the jungle, because there are laws of the jungle. Now, the laws of the jungle are very nice things like the family is important, working together is important. And of course, being a teacher, here I am teaching values, sharing, tolerance, caring. So we make the list, we make a poem, blah, blah, blah. At the end, I've got my list of laws, and I said, so, in your opinion, which law is the most important? Of course, everyone must die. Thank you for that positive lesson, children. Let's move on. Keep going. Oh. So, what happens in the story? We're back to Peter Pan. You remember the story? Yeah? Now, the start, as I say, to Peter Pan or to the Jungle Book, I think are wonderful ways to start with students, because they have this bizarre, interesting, intriguing start. Loads of them. Also, we have thank you, Granny. We have another one, a lovely activity. Now, I have taken from different stories. What you do is take your book, take out different lines that are said, and simply throw them back at the students at the end, saying who said what. Now, because you have not read the same books that I have, maybe not yet, I don't know. In which book and who says, what does that old man want with that old lamp? Aladdin says it, and the book is called
Aladdin. Okay, well done, girls and boys. Hey, you're really good.
I think it's called Aladdin and the Lamp, isn't it? Number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Have a quick chat to the person next to you. Who says it, and from which book? Children? Problems? No. Not yet. Number 1, go away. Number 2, and who says it? Somebody does. Number 3, Peter Pan, just seen it, okay. Who says it?
Peter Pan?
Peter Pan, yeah, there's a good one. Peter Pan says it, and the book's called Peter Pan. Number 4, Alice in Wonderland is the book, and the person is? Queen. I can't imagine Queen Elizabeth saying, but actually the first one probably did. Okay. Number 5? Right, number 6? Well done. And number 7?
Which one is number 6?
Don't worry, I've got the answers. And number 7? Winnie the Pooh. No. activity to do. You can actually flip it and get the students to do it and test each other. Very easy. Here, as I said, I've made a combination, but choosing the one reader that you've got, easy activity. How many did you get right? I got 7 right, but I wrote it. 6? Someone got 6, thank you. Wow. 5? 4? Now you're all too embarrassed. The correct answer is some. As I said yesterday, there are 2 things the students must know: not yet and some. Have you done your homework? Both answers apply. Project work. Do you do projects with readers? Some readers lend themselves more to projects than others do. This particular series, here is New York, there's one also on London. If any of you teach different languages, there is Spanish, German, French and Italian. There are similar things for for cities, obviously in those speaking countries. But you will find an A to Z, let's say, of places in New York. So the students can do research on a country, a city, whatever you want, and then present it to the rest of the class. My own children did it for Verona. I live in Verona, so we did an A to Z of Verona. I didn't actually realise we could do an A to Z of Verona. I didn't think Verona had that many things in it, but we managed to do quite a few of the letters. X is usually very difficult. Impossible, except nothing is impossible. So you've got an extraordinary place is. Y and Z are quite difficult unless you have a zoo. Do you? I was going to say, you do, just in case you're all nodding me. From Gdansk there is a zoo, right? Yes, there is. I drove past a place with O and a backward Z, and I thought, probably a zoo. That way it worked better. A closed test. This is a nice way, we do closed tests, but why don't you take a page from the book, eliminate the words you want, take out every adjective, take out every verb, take out every officially 7th or 9th word, make a closed test, throw it back at the kids, and they have to do that. That's another activity. Yes, you have to photocopy it, or do you have interactive whiteboards? Yes? Everybody? Please, who does not have an interactive whiteboard? Oh, thank you, I love you. No, I love you because people often say, oh, everyone has an interactive whiteboard. Thank you, not true. Not yet is the rule we live by. I have interactive whiteboards at the primary school where I live, but unfortunately, the password, no one can remember to get into internet because, oh, it's all into automatic. Thank you. Or they have those passwords that are about 946 letters and numbers, and some are capital and some are not, and they give it to you on a piece of paper and you're like, my God. I can't read any of it because I'm an old lady. Or if you have the lovely thing, you have an interactive whiteboard, it's absolutely gorgeous. Also, sorry, we have no electricity today. Do you get that? Yeah, this is reality. Oh, yeah, I don't work in a nice posh school. So, sorry, she says, pulling up her skirt again. I do have elastic in it. Well, there was. CLIL. Do you do CLIL?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm actually a CLIL teacher. Can you see? Tells me. Primary, I teach history, geography. You ready for this? Nutrition. I always laugh. This is what you should eat, and I can see them looking at me and me thinking, you're right. This is what you should eat. Yeah. This is coming from kids that have for breakfast pizza. I have pizza, nothing. What else do they have for breakfast? Exciting things like coffee. These kids are 10 years old and they're like this. I can't think why. But Chris, the Jungle Book is perfect, absolutely perfect for it. Not only that, there are other, where are you? Uncle Jack. Do you know Uncle Jack?
Not yet.
Do you know Uncle Jack? Okay. Uncle Jack, I love Uncle Jack. He's extremely green. He's a real conservationist. He does the most phenomenal things like saving animals, saving trees, saving all sorts of creepy crawlies, which is absolutely cool. He's the only person I know on the entire planet that if you are travelling from the UK to the, where did you go, Kalahari Desert, what would be your preferred form of transport?
Balloon.
Of course, you travel by balloon. Okay, he's a bit Greta Thunberg in that sort of sense. Okay, which I love, but they're wonderful for Quill because you've got all the geography, you've got all the geography, you've got all the geography, and you've got a little bit of biology because of animals and plants. Hey, you should be listening to me. What happens after the story has ended? I'm a real, well, how do I say this nicely? I get kind of annoyed at the Cinderella type of stories. Because I'm sorry, Cinderella, okay, she slaves away, this man comes along, drops down on knees, says, will you marry me? And she says, yes please. Really? I'm pretty sure she said, yes, but hold your horses. I want to first of all go to school and finish my education, and then we'll talk about it. Right? Now, I would also like to know why in Little Red Riding Hood, you all know the story? Have you ever done it with teenagers?
Yeah.
Because Little Red Riding Hood, I mean, okay, seriously, this little girl is how old? I mean, we don't know, but she's definitely not double digits. Okay? Now, she's got to be 7 or 8. Now, Mum must love her terribly, ironically, because she says, don't take a backpack, take a basket with freshly made bread and biscuits. Okay? Put them in a basket so it's nice and open. Okay, put on a red cape because that way we can see you easily. She then says, I want you to go into the forest with no mobile telephone. Go and visit your grandmother who's probably got a contagious disease, so off you go. Don't talk to strangers is the last thing she says, knowing that there's a wolf that speaks English in the forest. Now, seriously? This little girl goes innocently into the forest with her smells wafting through, and strangely enough, the wolf finds her. Probably came as a bit of a surprise to you when you read the story the first time. Now, I mean, honestly, what happens at the end of the story? Now, if you talk teenagers, I mean, kids will just go, oh, they all lived happily after. You know, seriously? This wolf throws up after he's eaten these creatures whole. You know the story where they cut him open and they come out a bit, and then they all live happily ever after? Wouldn't you have nightmares? Wouldn't you have the slightest interest in, I don't know, a bit more sort of animalistic kind of, I don't know. But no, so what happens after the story? You teenagers have a wonderful time. Because quite frankly, Little Red Riding Hood takes on a sadistic bit, goes back to her mother and kills her for having sent her into the forest. Okay, and my story for primary school is that Granny then makes a cup of tea for the woodcutter who saved her life. That's the least she could do. Now, do you guys know the Tempest? Okay, what happens at the end? Ooh. I'll give you some help. They leave the island, okay, and they go back to Milan, okay? Now, what happens to them? We don't know because the whole thing is the book finishes when they leave the island, okay? There's a lovely book called Hag's Seed by Margaret Atwood, and she talks about what happens afterwards. Now, if you ask your students what happens after, so it's the unwritten part, they end up with some wonderful, fantastic stories. Now, I can't remember if I wrote it, if I put it in. No, I didn't. Do you know the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears?
Yes.
Okay. What happens after? We don't know yet. Okay, it's okay. Teaching teenagers, I'm teaching teenagers in a secondary school. We took Goldilocks to court. Breaking and entering. Okay, so she steals, she breaks things, she falls asleep, which, okay, she was tired, she was only a child. But at the end of the story, if you remember, she runs home. Okay, but then what happens? Ask your kids to find out what happens, because it's all here. You get a lovely story from them. Sorry, I need some. I told you my gin and tonic, no gin, no tonic. Act it out. Some stories are wonderful just for acting. You've got them. May I? Well, I'm going to anyway. I did ask. Do you do acting in your classes? I'm not stretching. Do you do acting? You do, thank you. Every single teacher in this room acts, I'm sorry. You all lie every day. It's your job. You lie. You will say, how are you? Fine, thank you. Thinking, you darling, you're here again. Bugger. We lie all the time. This is our job. We lie and we say the letter S all the time. This is our job. So we act all the time. Kids love acting. Most of them. Get them to act out a story. Retelling the story from a different point of view. Now, as you can see, this is my lovely Uncle Jack, okay? In the cage, you can see they are kittens, right? They're the meerkats, exactly. Now, this is one of my favourite pictures from the book, and I think I've used it I don't know how many times. Why do I like this picture?
You like the eyes?
Okay. He looks like he's about to do something horrible, doesn't he? Doesn't he look like he's going, sorry. I'll give you some help. Humans versus animals. Have you seen that every single human's got a smile on their face? Every single animal does not. Now, I would like the story of Uncle Jack and the meerkats from the dog's point of view. So there's a nice idea there, because the dog is throughout the story. It's there at the beginning and it's there at the end. His name is Grumpy. Okay, and there is a perfect picture of Grumpy because he's certainly not happy. Now here, okay, what's happening from the point of view of the child? What's happening from the neighbour's point of view or the twins' point of view? I would like to know what you think his point of view is. Okay, so there's another idea for how to use a reader. These words have come from the book, okay, but my question is, what are the opposites? Now, best and wisdom, we're thrown out the window. What's the opposite of winter? Or? Exactly, no, exactly. Is autumn the opposite of winter?
That one's written off. Absolutely no way I was saying.
So we'll accept summer or we'll accept spring. Okay, short or tall? Oh, I love you. To walk? What you're doing is what my students do. Thank you. What I'm trying to say is there isn't one. It depends on your interpretation thereof. If I give you a page and then I say the words come from this page, what are the opposites with the meaning on this page? But I'm not like that, I'm horrible. Red? Green. Right, science tells us it's green. Okay, that's science. It's true, she's looking at me like science. Okay, but in other interpretations? What, blue? Okay. In my vocabulary, tanned. Okay. My brother and sister in the summer are tanned. Tracey is red. The opposite for me is off-white. Milk. Yes, someone said it.
Yeah.
Could be yogurt, well done. Could be coffee. Could be water, okay. Could be cow, okay. Beginning of the product, end of the product. Why not? In which case it would be grass. Okay. Hot. Cold. Or? Or? Yes. If we're thinking about curry, we go from hot curry to mild curry. Okay. Girl. Woman. Right, exactly. Boy or woman. That was really interesting. Did you notice that? Boy, woman. That was really cool. You guys make a good comparison. Do you speak?
Listen.
To be silent. Right, exactly. So, taking the words, obviously out of context, there are lots of possibilities. Taking them from a page is probably only one. But you can have fun. Right, in the story you have the best and the worst, but you can also be, something can be up and down at the same time. So here, talking about linguistically looking at the book, so vocabulary, you've got that. I laughed so much I cried as an expression, to know the ins and outs of something. Coming from New Zealand, we have an expression which is out in the sticks. Okay, which means, anyone know? I do. Do you?
Middle of nowhere.
Exactly. But it was refused by the dictionary. They said you cannot be out and in at the same time, so you cannot be out in the sticks. So we had to say in the sticks, according to the dictionary, but of course it doesn't make any sense. Where are you? In the sticks. You're out in the sticks. That's perfectly good sense in New Zealand. Number 19. I am using the book. This is what my students say to me. How are they using it? They're using it for posture. I won't do it because it'll bore. They're using it for a door.
Killing a fly.
Exactly, good girl. A doorstop.
Like a folder or something?
Well done. Well done. This is what I say to my students. Where is your book? I'm using it. Because you know your students, don't you? You know your students, and if your students are like mine, they tell you something, and then they get that look in their eye, and you know that not quite the answer that you're expecting. I think the answer that they gave me was this. Just they wobbled, you know. And the nice thing about these books is that they're just the right size, that you just need a couple of extra pages and you've got exactly the right balance. Not quite what I wanted to hear. I would rather have been never mind. Never mind. You see, you can't do that with digital books. Actually, did you know that science, sorry, you can tell I read a lot, can't you? Science tells us that a book is actually better than a digital book. Do you know why? Not yet? You do know why. It's because all of us do it. If you're teaching, you say, look at this, look at that, show me this, show me that, point to this, point to that, involving your students in the use of the book. Digital books don't do that. Kids tend to read digital books alone, whereas if you're reading a book as a class, you're involving your students. Where did that one come from? Particularly if you have an interactive whiteboard where you're able to stop, picture freeze it, and use it to highlight things. We all do it as teachers, as parents. Okay, so this is actually really good. You're helping the students to read. For 2 minutes. No, that's fine. I've got one more. No, I haven't. 2 more. Tracey, I'm an English teacher, not a maths teacher. 20. Cultural awareness. No, I was just thinking, Little Red Riding Hood, I'm sorry. I have it in for her. The original story comes from what country? Or blame Germany, it sounds horrible. Cultural awareness. In Germany, you send children out into the wild alone. In Poland? No. In Italy, they don't. They keep them at home until they're like 44. Mum, can I go out? I'll take a friend. Bring your phone. I'm not joking. I live in this country where people pick up their phones and so just borrow yours and say, just got to ring my mum. Which I think is lovely, but every half hour? Sorry, that was nasty. No, that was fair. Cultural awareness. Are you aware of these books? Do you know these books? Since Tracy's standing in front of you, not yet. These are, it's a new series, they're called Real Life. Oddly enough, they're about real lives.
No.
You'll never guess in which country this boy lives in.
Turkey.
Oh my gosh, you're so incredible. Wow, your geography, clearly. Oh, that one helps. I did not think of that, I'm sorry. And this one probably helps as well.
Peru?
You guys are good, your geography's good.
Oh, that one helps you. The cultural, have you got multicultural classes? Not yet? You can joke. I arrived in Italy, let's just say last millennium, and when I arrived, my classes were 100% Italian students. I was the foreigner. Now I walk into classes, and some of my classes are actually 50% non-Italians, often second generation, not first generation. So I've got second generations where the parents don't necessarily speak Italian. So we're interpreting through a 7-year-old child, which brings me back to when I started teaching in New Zealand. I was teaching in a low socio-economic area. There were an awful lot of children who were in need of help, let's say. I would very often have the parent-teacher meeting with the child as interpreter. And I used to laugh like anything because, of course, the parents would say, how is he going at school? And the kid going,
Mom wants to know what I'm like.
And then I always thought, it doesn't matter what I say. I love children. I love them more at 4'11". So I don't know how many of you live and work in an area where it's quite small and you get the kids coming up to you and saying hello. Do you get that? Yeah. And the primary kids come up to you and I don't know about you, but I'm taking my rubbish down. I'm dressed in my usual sort of, fully elegant, high heeled makeup and everything to take my rubbish down. And I get these kids attacking me, and you get the parents who don't know you, or the older brother. Do you get the older brother and sister just doing this? And it's just like, English teacher, English teacher, English teacher. And then the parents who don't speak English at all, or Italian, they're just like, I also teach secondary school, so I've got the secondary school kids in my area, and they're doing exactly the same as me. They see me and they're like this. No, not me, just be walking. Oh dear. It's dangerous where I live to go out. Oh, gonna have to get some. Anyway. I'm sorry. Cultural awareness, you can't get more than that. Or number 21, you might just leave it. So there are 21 ways to use a reader. I have not touched other ways as well. There are loads and loads of ways. Now, if you want any more ways, or you can't remember any of these, do you know et toi?
Yeah, think of that one.
do come to the A-class stand with your incredibly expensive piece of paper. If you wish to contact me directly, my email's in the programme. Okay, if you want to say, Tracey, I can't remember what you said, or can I have a copy of his licence, like that, do let me know, and I will totally ignore you. Thank you very much for coming. I'm finishing on time. Thanks. Thank you.